Today, I'm going to get the Platinum for the House of the Dead 2 Remake. In total, it has 36 trophies, including the Platinum. And to kick things off, I'm starting with the co-op trophies. I start a game with co-op mode enabled, but my second controller turned off, and then in the middle of the first encounter, I turn on the second controller and sign in with a guest account to get the trophy the reinforcements have arrived for having a player join mid-game. Then I quickly go back to the main menu and start a new campaign with the second controller active, since I'll need to complete the whole game with 2 players for another trophy. So the House of the Dead is one of my favorite game franchises out there. I have a lot of good memories of playing the first and second game at arcades, and playing the other games on various consoles over the years. So the fact that it's available to play on PlayStation now, despite, in my opinion, the remake being a bit inferior compared to the original arcade version, which I'll share some more of my thoughts about it towards the end of the video, I think it's still a pretty cool experience being able to play it on PlayStation and being able to get a platinum out of it. The first stage of the game, a prelude, introduces us to the character G, who's actually the second player character in the House of the Dead 1. We end up meeting him while he's injured, and after killing some of the zombies, or more accurately, creatures nearby, he gives me a journal which details the weak points of the different bosses that we'll be encountering throughout the game. In the next area, we get introduced to 2 of the core mechanics of the game, the first of which being civilians. On various screens of the game, you'll have a chance to save a civilian, which may reward you with things like extra health, bonus items, and if you save all the civilians in the game, you'll be given access to a secret room at the end of the game filled with bonus items. For saving this first civilian, I'm awarded the trophy Hero, and I'm given the chance to save an additional civilian who's over at this well, which introduces me to the second mechanic of the game, alternate paths. Now this will be important for a trophy later in the game called Traveler, which requires you to go down each of the available paths in the game, but depending on certain player actions like saving civilians, shooting locks off of doors, or other interactions throughout the game, in this case because I saved both of the civilians, I'm sent down the bypass pathway, whereas if I failed to save one or both of the civilians, I would be sent down the courtyard pathway. I work my way through the rest of the stage and make my way to the first boss fight against Judgment. For his main mechanic, if you shoot the golem Quar, he'll take a small amount of damage per shot, but shooting the imp guy behind him named Zeal deals heavy damage. Now there's 2 huge changes in this fight compared to the original arcade version which I want to point out. In the original, once Quar is close enough to attack, Zeal will hover above him for around a full second, giving you a chance to shoot him. Whereas in this remake, he is visible for roughly half a second before hiding. The other change is if you do take damage in the arcade version, Zeal will pop up from behind Quar to laugh at you, giving you a chance to shoot him, whereas in this remake, this behavior is entirely missing. Even with these changes though, the fight isn't all that difficult. After dealing enough damage to Quar, he'll drop to the ground, leaving just Zeal, who's pretty easy to shoot, and as I take him out, I earn my next 2 trophies of the run, being Judgment for beating the stage, and Partners for completing a chapter with 2 players. This brings me to the second stage in the game, Muddy, which opens with a car that has a zombie on the windshield. In this playthrough, I ended up failing to save the man in the car, which caused it to crash into the jewelry store, sending me inside. If I did end up saving him, I'd go down a different route, which would be one of the 6 different paths I can take in the level. As I was working my way through the chapter, I ended up saving a civilian who gave me a machine gun, which gave me the trophy, Do You Really Know How to Use It, for collecting my first of many weapons in the game. After a whole lot more dead zombies, I ended up reaching the boss fight for the level, where I go against the Hierophant. Now, depending on which path you end up taking, you'll either fight him at the wharf, like I am in this playthrough, or at the Sunset Bridge. Both variants of the Hierophant fight function mostly the same, with only some very slight differences between the 2. The main mechanic for the Hierophant fight is in order to damage him, you have to shoot his exposed heart, which opens and closes throughout the fight, giving you pretty limited periods in which you can deal damage to him. All in all though, I'd say he's probably the easiest fight in the game. Rarely have I ever taken damage when I've gone against him, but I take him out pretty quickly and earn the trophy Hierophant for completing the stage, which brings me to the third chapter, Darkness. So, this chapter starts at one of two different points depending on if you fought Hierophant at the wharf or the Sunset Bridge. There's only one alternate route for both sides, which involves this guy in the boat. If you end up saving him, you'll go down one path, whereas if he dies, you'll take an alternate route. As I push my way through the chapter, I reach the Coliseum and find a civilian who in the original arcade game has one of my favorite voice lines.
My friends went inside, but they're not back yet. I told them not to go.
My friends went inside, but they're not back yet. I told them not to go.
Sadly, the voice acting in the remake doesn't hit quite the same as the original. But this brings me to the next boss in the game, Tower, which is these 5 individual snakes that I need to kill. The only way I can damage them is shooting them in the mouth while they have them open. The snakes will open their mouths up just periodically, as well as when they're prepping for an attack. This allows you to, if you're pretty quick with it, basically keep shooting all of the different heads over and over to kill them off in not too much time overall. Once you kill off the 4 reddish colored heads, you'll be left with just the blue snake, which will flee to a different area, which will either be filled with water or sand depending on which route you ended up taking. And like before, you can only damage it when its mouth is open, which also ends up interrupting its attacks. As I kill him, I get the trophy Tower for clearing the stage. The next chapter in the game, Despair, is set entirely within the Coliseum. Like the previous chapter, depending on where you fought Tower, you'll start at one of 2 different routes, and there's 4 different alternate routes you can end up taking as you go through. As I reach the end of the chapter, I meet up with our friends Harry and Amy, who are having a great time with the boss of this chapter, Strength. This boss is a big guy with a chainsaw, with his weak point being his head. The fight isn't really that hard at all. The only real attack that's ever dangerous and gives issues for me is when he jumps down from one of the arena walls. But he's a pretty quick fight to deal with, earning me my next trophy in the game, Strength. Up next is the second to last chapter of the game, Dawn. Here, I'm heading to Goldman's office to put a stop to his plans, where after killing a couple more creatures, I get to hop into this car and quickly encounter Judgment once again. The fight is functionally the same as the first chapter. After I kill Judgment for the second time, I get to proceed forward driving down the bridge before I encounter Hierophant once again. Like before, there's also 0 difference in this fight compared to stage 2, so after I kill him, I continue towards Goldman's office and meet the final boss of the first game, the Magician. The Magician fight plays out very similar to how he acts in the first game, and in my opinion, he is by far the hardest boss in House of the Dead 2. His attacks involve him throwing orbs at you, which aren't too hard to interrupt either by shooting down the orbs or shooting one of his weak points. The main issue when fighting him is he'll teleport 3 times and then lunge at you. This attack has an incredibly short window where you have to hit one of his weak points in order to interrupt it, which is already causing me to dread this fight for when I have to go for my no damage run later. But once you get him down to about half health, he starts using this attack where he'll hover in the sky, charging up and throwing a large number of orbs all at once. All you have to do is juggle shooting the orbs to avoid taking damage, while hitting his weak points to whittle down his health. Once he's dead, I finish the chapter, earning the trophy Magician. This leads me to the final chapter of the game, Original Sin. This chapter introduces these new creature types, which are very alien looking, which I think fits well with the aesthetic of Goldman's office building being very sterile looking. As I make my way through the level, I meet my old friend Tower once more, and this time, unlike the first time, you actually fight all 5 heads at once, as basically like phase 1 of the fight in stage 3. So this makes the fight go just a lot faster since you can basically spam fire your pistol in a line back and forth and kill the heads pretty quick. After finishing off Tower, this leaves me with the final hallway I need to clear through, which after killing the last couple of creatures, I get to reach Goldman's office and hear his monologue. Now, I'll say this, I think the new Goldman voice actor did a good job. It's a little weird hearing him with a southern accent, but there is just something so iconic about the original voice actor's delivery.
I've been waiting for you, friends.
Goldman!
Do you know what you're doing? I'm fully aware of what I'm doing. Can't you see? Man committed a sin, disturbing the life cycle of nature, the original sin that man is responsible to protect the life cycle. I have made a creature to rule over mankind. This is the final battle. Show yourself, our new ruler, the Emperor.
I've been waiting for you, friends.
Goldman! Do you know what you're doing?
I'm fully aware of what I'm doing. Can't you see? Man committed a sin, disturbing the life cycle of nature, the original sin that man is responsible to protect the life cycle. I have made a creature to rule over mankind. This is the final battle. Show yourself, our new ruler, the Emperor.
See what I mean? But he introduces us to the final boss of the game, the Emperor. Now, I think they did a really great job with the Emperor design, basically taking the original version of trying to be a sort of translucent looking effect and really just amplified it a lot in this version. But his weak point is the red orb in the center of his chest. And the first phase of this fight is pretty easy, as he mainly attacks by launching some of his blue orbs that are surrounding him at you, or merging them together into a sword arm to lunge and slash at you. Once you've dealt enough damage to him, he'll move into his second phase, where he'll start attacking you by mimicking the other bosses in the game, except for the Magician. At this point, you have to interrupt the attacks in order to deal damage, as shooting his chest orb will deal no damage to him. After interrupting a couple of these boss attacks, you'll deal enough damage, which pushes him into Phase 3. At this point, he just condenses into his red orb, and all of the blue orbs start swirling rapidly around it. And at this point in the fight, it's basically just you're mag dumping the red orb as fast as you can to kill him off. Once you hit this point in the fight, you're pretty much set though. As far as I can remember, I don't think I've even, in my time playing the arcade version, ever taken damage during this phase of the fight. So, as soon as I kill him, I get the trophy Emperor for beating the final stage, and get another brief Goldman monologue, which ends up in him falling off of the building, and get the trophies One for All and All for One for beating the game with 2 players, Agent for beating the game in original mode, and after watching the credits, I get to see the ending I earned, which happened to be the bad ending, which gave me the trophy Bad Ending for having a score below 80,000 and the final digit being a 0. So with that first playthrough out of the way, I'm left with 22 more trophies until I get the Platinum. I decided to quickly knock out 2 more trophies involving getting the normal ending. The other trophy that I'm going for is going to be Rookie, which requires you to have a score below 24,000 points when you beat the game. The easiest way to accomplish this is to just use the chapter select and play chapter 6 by itself, so that way you won't score more than 24,000 points. And make sure you die at least once and use a continue, as each time you do use a continue, you'll be given 1 point. Which, in order to get the normal ending, you need to have a score below 80,000, and the final digit must not be a 0. But after beating the Emperor one more time, I received the Rookie trophy and the normal ending trophy. For the next trophy, I need to let myself get killed repeatedly until I run out of credits. But while on the subject of taking damage, I want to talk briefly about one of my biggest issues with both this remake and the remake of the first game. Both normal enemies and bosses frequently will attack and deal damage in a way that feels incredibly unfair. Oftentimes they'll get within range and attack before you really have any chance to react. For comparison, here's the arcade version running via an emulator on my PC, set to very hard difficulty, and the remake, where I had the difficulty set to very easy for the purpose of comparison. As you can see in the arcade version, even though I'm on very hard difficulty, enemy attacks are clearly telegraphed and you have a chance to kill them before you end up taking damage. The best way that I can show this is this attack animation here. In the arcade version, you can see the enemy do a bit of a backstep and a wind-up animation before starting to swing, whereas in the remake, they immediately begin swinging to strike me. It's a subtle difference, but it really matters in a light gun shooter, having clearly defined attack animations, giving you a chance to react. Because to me, this is a huge issue that makes the game far harder, but not really in a good way, and more of a just way where it feels like you're unfairly taking damage. And just as a reminder, the arcade version in this footage is on very hard difficulty, whereas the remake is set to very easy difficulty. But as I end up dying for the last time in the remake, I get the trophy, dough, I'm dead. Next up, I decided to move on to Chapter 2, to find the creature type Bob, which is this large executioner looking zombie, and proceeded to shoot its chest until it exploded for the trophy Detorsification. Next up, I decided to go for a run where I'll save every civilian in the game, and at the very first stage I got the trophy Headhunter for shooting 666 heads off of zombies. Now, saving all the civilians in the game is incredibly important because it will give me two separate trophies. The first of which is going to be So Much Loot, which what happens is if you save all civilians in the game, you'll have a secret room open right before the Emperor boss fight, which will grant you this trophy, and the room's filled with a bunch of bonus items for score and bonus health and that kind of stuff. And then the second trophy, which once I beat the Emperor again, I earned Savior, which requires you to save all civs in the game. I then decided to hop into one of the two alternate game modes, Training. The training scenarios are all fairly fun to play, ranging from things like saving all civilians or killing all of the creatures with only 30 bullets, that kind of stuff. Each of these stages has 5 stars that you can earn, which require you to go through all previous star levels to earn it. In total, there's 10 different training stages, meaning you have to complete each 5 times for a total of 50 times. Most of the training scenarios are fairly fun. The most annoying one I'd say is the keep the coin in the air training mode, where you have to keep it up for a total of 50 seconds for the 5-star version. As soon as I finished this though, I earned my final star that I needed, earning me the trophy Train Well. I then quickly popped into the secret lab from the main menu, which gave me the trophy Catch 'em All for collecting all creature entries, which just involves killing one of each enemy throughout the game and then heading to the secret lab. I then went through the game's original mode and got the grenade launcher, which allowed me to blow up 3 enemies at once for the trophy Triple Kill. I also earned the trophy Pentakill for killing 5 enemies in a row with modern scoring mode enabled, and Grenadier for killing 3 enemies at the same time. This brings me to the next alternate game mode, Boss Rush. Like the training mode, each boss has 5 different star levels, which increases the difficulty slightly per time you beat them. The big problem with this mode is that while there's 6 bosses in the game, you have to beat both variants of each boss. So Hierophant has 2 separate variants, meaning you have to beat him at the Wharf and the Sunset Bridge, respectively, to earn 5 stars for each location. The same applies for Tower, where he has 2 variants, and Strength also has 2 variants. While I was going through the Boss Rush game mode, I killed one of Hierophant's piranhas, which happened to be enemy number 2137, which granted me the trophy Butcher. Now, if it wasn't bad enough that I have to beat every boss in the game, including their 2 variants for Hierophant, Tower, and Strength, 5 separate times, what's really bad is that at the end, there's a final mode called Fight All, which requires you to beat every boss in the game, including their variants, all in a row. So not only do you have to beat every boss 5 times, with 9 bosses, meaning you have to beat 45 boss fights, you then have to beat an additional 9 bosses, all back to back, 5 times over, to get the trophy. Meaning in total, as long as you don't end up dying at any point, you have to beat 90 boss fights to get this trophy. Thankfully, the game does show a little bit of mercy and restores your hit points in between fights that you do, meaning you don't have to get through using only the 10 hit points that you have available. But as soon as I beat Emperor for the final time in the Boss Rush mode, I earned the trophy Boss Speeder. After I finished up with the Boss Rush mode, I decided to go back through original mode to collect the last remaining weapons I needed, and using each of them for the trophy Gunner. At this point, I'm down to 7 trophies left, 5 of which I can get in the exact same playthrough by beating the game with more than 100,000 points and by completing the game without taking damage. So because of this, I decided to break out the assault rifle just to take away a lot of the annoyances of the remake with the earlier damage animations I referenced. The first trophy is not today for beating a single chapter without taking any damage, and most of this playthrough is pretty uneventful to talk about. I did pop a double score item at the trunk, so I could get easily above 100,000 points. As you see here, I'm almost at 90k with the Magician fight. Like I said when I was talking about my first playthrough, the Magician boss fight is by far the hardest fight in the game in my opinion. Even with the assault rifle, it's incredibly difficult to get through it without taking any damage. Until I discovered a little bit of an interesting thing with the fight, which is when the Magician is doing his lunge attack, which is really the only dangerous attack you've got to worry about, it's pretty hard hitting his weak points as he's lunging in. Except one of them just happens to be lined up with the exact center of the screen. So by using an assault rifle or even a pistol, which I tested later, all you have to do is begin firing and then hit the square button, and you'll basically guarantee yourself to hit one of his weak points, interrupting his attack. After I took care of Magician, Tower, and the Emperor themselves gave me really no issues at all, and I was able to beat the Emperor to finish out the game and earn the trophies Invincible for beating the game without taking any damage, You Are Truly Special for having over 100,000 points. After skipping the credits, I get the trophies Good Ending for having over 80,000 points when you beat the game, and the trophy Ender for viewing all the endings possible in the game. I'm now left with only 2 trophies in order to get the Platinum, the first of which I decided to do requires me to go back to the second stage in the game, Muddy, to go down the final path that I hadn't visited yet for the Trophy Traveler, which requires you to explore every available path in the game. And this leaves me with the final trophy, Gatherer, which, as the trophy text states, requires you to collect all bonus items in a campaign, which is a massive lie. This trophy, as far as I can tell, is either glitched or has a different unlock condition than what the trophy text specifies. The reason why I know this is because I played through a campaign on original mode, using a grenade launcher and a pistol to get every single bonus item possible throughout the campaign, which did not pop the trophy. As I beat the Emperor, I failed to get the trophy even though I got every single bonus item possible in the game. But I did end up getting a cheat code out of it, which was a nice enough consolation prize, I guess. I then had the idea, maybe I need to go into arcade mode and play through the whole game, getting all bonuses in that. So I quickly ran through, did that, and still no trophy pop when I beat the Emperor. I went to the secret lab and checked the trophy board there, and saw that it says for the trophy, you need to collect all items in the secret lab, which differs quite heavily from the trophy text saying all bonus items in the campaign. The problem is, I went ahead and collected every single possible item for the secret lab and still didn't get the trophy. However, luckily I happened to stumble upon a PSN profiles post from someone who got the Platinum, and they stated what you need to do is, in order to unlock the Platinum, earn the cheat code to unlock all trunk items, activate the cheat code, and then go ahead and beat a chapter for the trophy. So I went ahead, got this cheat code, and played the first chapter to beat Judgment, and as I dealt the killing blow, I held my breath and hoped. I felt a huge wave of relief as soon as I saw the trophy pop and earned the Platinum. At this point, it had been a couple hours of me trying everything I could think of to get that trophy to pop, and if not for stumbling upon that PSN profiles post, I don't know if I would have really figured it out. So I just want to give my final thoughts on the remake. I think overall, they did an alright job with it. They did a fairly good job when it comes to all the different creatures in taking the original style from the arcade but slightly modernizing them. I would also say that they did a pretty good job when it came to the bosses in the game in updating them while staying true to the original style. I would say too that they did a good job with the voice acting in the game. Even though the original arcade version is basically burned into my mind permanently and I'm certainly nostalgic for it, the voice actors did a good job. It is a little weird that they gave Goldman a southern accent, but other than him, I'd say everybody sounds pretty close to how they did in the arcade version. And then, most importantly, is the gameplay. I use the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller with motion controls to aim the entire time, which takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you do, it works surprisingly well. So, with all that said, the House of the Dead 2 Remake is a pretty fun game to play in my opinion, and I did have a good time getting the platinum, other than the Gatherer trophy. It is $25 in the PlayStation Store right now, or if you already own the first game, it's only $16.50. I'd say it's a pretty decent price for the game, but I'd really recommend that you play the House of the Dead 2 and 3 Returns on the Wii, or get an emulator to play the original arcade version on your computer. And if you really want to experience the House of the Dead as close to the arcade version as possible without playing an actual cabinet, then you could go all out and get a Sinden light gun paired with an emulator to get as close as possible to the original experience at home. With all that said though, I want to say a big thanks to you for watching if you've made it this far. Please let me know in the comments down below what you think about the remake. And if there's any games you'd like to see me cover, please also let me know. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, then please subscribe as it helps out a small channel like myself. And thank you so much once again for watching.
The original sin that man is responsible to protect the life cycle.